If I told you that I could help you completely eliminate no-call, no-shows from your restaurant, you'd probably call me a liar. Guess what? I would be a liar. Because in this industry, where you're dealing with workers that are paid a really low average annual salary, it's bound to happen. That said, there are some things you can do to make the occurrence happen a lot less. I'm Matt Roberts of Restaurant Ninjas, and while you can't completely 86 the no-call, no-show, today we're going to talk about how you can limit it by setting up some smart systems and policies. Hey everyone, welcome back to Restaurant Ninjas, where I try to help you run your restaurant and not let your restaurant run you. If you are a restaurant industry professional, this is the channel for you. If you're a manager in any industry, in any level, this is also probably the channel for you, because in addition to restaurant operations advice, I give a ton of leadership advice that can be applied universally. Each week I put up a new video, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and if you like this video, hit the little thumbs up button, and even you can hit the bell so you're notified whenever something new goes on. For anyone who might be confused by my slang, no call, no show is the quick abbreviation, often put as NCNS, for an employee who does not show up for a scheduled shift and doesn't call to let you know that they're calling out. The no call, no show remains the complete bane of most managers' existence. Just when a night seems like it's going to go really well and you're going to have a smooth shift, one of your closers doesn't show up and you feel that familiar pit in your stomach form and you realize, well, this is going to suck. Like I said, we can't completely fix this issue, but we can drastically reduce its occurrence. I'm going to break this video down into two parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about prevention and things you can do to reduce the number of no-call, no-shows that can occur. This is going to be the meat and potatoes of the video. Then in the back half of the video, I'm going to talk about how to structure your employee attendance and policies in general to ensure that it's easy to get rid of people who are repeat offenders and take advantage of you with no-call, no-shows. So without further ado, let's talk about prevention. Before we can really talk about prevention, we got to talk about what exactly a no-call, no-show is. So I did already define it as someone who doesn't show up and doesn't call. At its most simplistic form, yeah, that's what it is. But some managers throw this word around a little too much, and that's dangerous, because a no-call, no-show is a serious offense, so it's really very important that you only use it when it's actually a no-call, no-show. Someone who says, hey, I'm not coming in for that shift next week, I'm scheduled against my availability, to one manager, and then he doesn't show up, and then the other manager records it as a no-call, no-show, that's not right, okay? That's clearly some other breakdown in the system. So we have to be very careful about how ourselves as leaders and how our management teams define this. To me, it's as simple as a regularly scheduled shift that you don't show up for within 3 hours of the start of the shift or half of the shift, whatever happens first. Now, why do people no-call, no-show in the first place? There's a plethora of reasons, and if we're going to really figure out how we can put some systems in place to prevent this, we got to really understand why it happens. The first reason is emergencies. And this is a true story. So if you have an emergency and you're knocked unconscious, you're in a car accident, you are physically incapable of making a call, sure, that's a no-call, no-show, and that's a valid reason for a no-call, no-show. That's one of the reasons you don't want to just have a blanket no-call, no-show, no-job policy, because it doesn't protect people who have real situations that warrant it. The flip side of this is that there's other people who have actual emergencies that could be called in, but they don't. So car accidents where you're not unconscious, someone passes away, your kid's really sick. These are all reasons where you shouldn't come into work. And a lot of people will use them as reasons for no-call, no-shows. To me, I'm sorry, I don't think that's acceptable. I feel as though unless you're unconscious, you should be able to call in. Now, there's also some emergencies where they're so distraught mentally that they can't call in. So maybe the car accident has just shaken them completely mentally. Or maybe they're having a personal issue where they're just completely incapacitated. I think it's important that we be understanding of that and still try to build our policy around the fact that maybe that happened to somebody and we don't want to just automatically terminate them. If you can't tell at this point, I'm not a fan of automatic no-call, no-show, no-job, because it leads to a situation where you have a great employee who does a no-call, no-show, and there's a legitimate reason, and you're stuck with the option of follow the policy and fire them, or look like an idiot and don't follow your policy. More on that in the second part of this video. Another reason people no-call, no-show is because they're sick and they're afraid to call off. Hopefully, in the era of COVID, this isn't nearly as big of an issue as it used to be. Back before COVID, I was guilty of this too. Someone called and said they're sick. It's, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm sorry you're not feeling good. Grab some Tylenol. I'll see you at 4. We can't keep doing that. That's not right. If someone's truly sick, they shouldn't come to work. This includes mental health issues. So we need to have backup plans in mind, and we need to make it so that people aren't afraid to call off. Now, managing that's a whole nother story and a whole nother video. but we don't want them to be so afraid to call off that they just no call, no show. Another reason people don't show up for work for a regularly scheduled shift is because they requested off and didn't get it, because maybe you have a policy of, oh, well, you didn't get their request off in time, or maybe you scheduled them against their availability and they just said, screw it. So that's another reason it happens, and that's easily preventable. How about people who are just confused about their schedule? Do you make changes to your schedule after you post the official version? Do you take it down and make changes? That could definitely cause an issue. How many times have you heard, I wasn't scheduled that, you changed the schedule? That happens. If you ever change a schedule, even once, you lost credibility in this. Then there's the people who really just don't give a crap. Something better came along. Wow, I can go to a bonfire with my friends and drink rum? I don't know what kids do. Maybe that's what they decided, and they decided to just not show up, and they just don't get the consequences of it, either from the restaurant or the business's point of view, what it's like going short a person at the last minute without notice, or what it's like from the disciplinary point of view. All right, so now what you're here for. How do we reduce the no-call, no-shows? Now that we understand some of the reasons they happen. This is all about putting smart policies and systems in place, but it also starts with, number one, your culture. This goes without saying. If you have a place where people do not want to come to work, you're going to have more no-call, no-shows. It just goes without saying. If people have fun at work, if people are paid fairly, if people enjoy working with the people they're working with and the leaders they're working with, they're going to want to come to work. It's just like school. When you were a kid, if you enjoyed school, you did everything you could to not have to take a sick day. My son, first grade, I'm not sick, I'm fine. He could be dying. I have to force him to stay home when he's sick. We want to get to that point with our employees where they enjoy it so much. And again, that's going to be a topic for another video, how we create that work environment. The next thing we can do to eliminate no-call, no-shows is to eliminate excuses, also reasons. So I've always said that there's a real thin line between excuses and reasons, and there really is. So I mentioned a couple of things already. Not getting a request off. We'll talk about more about that in a second. How can we take that reason and reduce it to nothing? How about people who are confused about their schedule? That's another one we can totally fix by putting some smart systems in place. The first thing we're going to do, though, is make sure that we have a very specific policy in our handbook for no-call, no-shows. This should not be in your attendance policy, because your attendance policy is for attendance. A no-call, no-show is a major infraction and should be treated differently than a call-off or a lateness. That's my personal opinion, and that's worked the best for me. That policy should also include the consequences, which again I'll get to here in a second. The next thing is you need to really honor your published schedule. However you do your schedule, if you're using a program like 7 Shifts or one of the other scheduling programs that does it online, or if you're just using a paper schedule, or if you're just putting it off of Excel, once it goes on the wall, that is the official schedule. That cannot be changed by anyone except the manager. Keep it locked up. If you're putting it in public view, the official schedule, then post it inside one of those locking document things. If you're going to keep it in the office, that's fine. Anyone who makes changes, they initial it. The only people who can make changes are managers. This includes shift changes. Another piece of this, though, with scheduling is to make sure that you actually post it with a good amount of time ahead. Honor the time you post it. If you say you're going to post it by 4 o'clock on Fridays for the following week, then you better post it by 4 o'clock on Fridays for the following week. The longer you make people wait, the longer you delay posting that schedule, the more issues you're going to have the following week. I understand that sometimes there's a ton of staffing issues that make you want to say, well, I want to see if this person shows up this weekend before I post a schedule. Post it anyway. Don't punish your good employees for your bad employees. If they don't show up, then you just go cover those shifts. But at least you have the majority of it posted and covered and set up. And eventually, by doing this week after week, you're going to add more good employees to your core, and that problem is going to go away to a pretty much dissolve away. That's what you're trying to do. Okay, next piece of advice here, and you guys are going to throw popcorn at me for this and say it's impossible. Post your schedule at least a week in advance. I know, it's hard. It's very difficult. Then people don't get their requests. Yeah, they can. Give them their request, post it a week in advance. You are going to be shocked at how much different and how much better this makes things. It is definitely not fun at first, but within a couple of weeks and months, this system makes your employees' lives better, and it makes your life better because you're not stressing to get the schedule up at the last moment. In order to do this, you're going to have a solid schedule in place for shift covering so that people who have last-minute things come up can still get off even though they didn't request off in time because the schedule came up a week or so in advance. So with that type of thing, so make sure you have some clear and concrete guidelines on how to change shifts that are approved by a manager, and once they're changed, the person who picks it up now owns that shift. So if they don't show up, that's on them, not the person who gave the shift away. Shift changes should be honored completely, and once it happens, it happens. Make sure you have enough staff so that people can cover shifts. Having extra staff makes this so much easier, which also goes into cross-training. Make sure your team's cross-trained so that if a server needs off on a Friday night and you have a ton of bus people but not a ton of servers, well, hopefully your bus people can also serve so they can pick up that shift, or vice versa, for example. Next, don't limit requests off. Folks, we're paying people $8 to $12 an hour here, and we're going to tell them they can't have off for major life events like family vacations because they didn't get it in time. Or I've seen prom. My personal favorite was I worked with a guy who allowed 3 requests off at a time. Okay, well, you have 15 people from the same high school who work your Saturday night shift. Are you going to tell them not to go to prom? That's exactly what he did. He lost half his staff. The other half was angry with him and left later. What's the point of that? What did I do differently, you say? Well, how are you going to do it? Well, here's what I did. I called another store and said, hey, what day is your prom? And we staffed each other. I sent my team over to staff their prom night. They sent their team over to staff my prom night. We all went a little bit short. It was a little bit difficult because we didn't have enough to cover everything, but nobody quit. Nobody no-call, no-showed. We sweat a little on those shifts, but because we planned ahead, everything went way better than the no-call, no-shows that happened because we said, no, you can't have off. Which leads me to my next tip, which is think outside the box when it comes to staffing, when it comes to scheduling. Understand that if you know that a prom date is a certain day and you know that you have all these kids for this prom, I know I keep using prom as an example, it's just an easy one, then think months in advance, okay? Know when your high school proms are, know when graduation is, know when football home games are for your high school staff. For your rest of your staff, how about your college kids? Know that when finals come near, know in April, when everyone starts cramming for finals, you're going to need more staff. You're going to need to be prepared. So you're going to need to have enough people to cover shifts, and you're going to need to be aware of not overscheduling and overworking people. For me, one of my favorite things every year in October, all the kids, all the high school and college kids at that point were starting to get sick because they were overworked, because they were burning the candle at both ends. It took me a couple of years to catch on and start limiting how much I scheduled them in September and early October to keep them going. They didn't love me for it, but they eventually did. They didn't like me at first for it, to be honest, because they thought they were losing money. But I ramped it up, so you start off with 2 days a week. If you're not struggling by this date, we'll go to 3, and we'll go to 4. Again, this is not an overnight fix because you got to have enough staff to do it, and it's hard. I would go short on shifts rather than overschedule people. And again, difficult in the beginning, but in the end, it was really good because I was staffed and I had a great team. All right, now, no call, no show. So I mentioned earlier the attendance policy. I don't think your no call, no show should be part of your attendance policy, and I'm going to stick to that. You should have a separate no call, no show policy that is part of your misconduct policy. It's up there with things like defamation, theft, harassment. It's a major deal. By doing this, you show that it is way more important and way more consequential than a regular attendance issue. Also, separating adds more perceived weight to the crime, so to say. I do suggest you do not go with the no call, no show, no job policy because it does put you in a position, like I said, where somebody has a legit reason to no call, no show, and they're rare, and you have to fire them or look stupid by going back on your policy. I'm a big fan of the no call, no show 2 times is a no job. If you do it once in January and once in April, that's a termination. 2 no call, no shows, you're fired for no call, no show. So you're terminating them. However, and this has worked for me in the state of Pennsylvania, 2 no call, no shows consecutively, I've put in as job abandonment and a voluntary separation. So I haven't paid unemployment on those. Just a heads up, I don't know how it's going to work for you in your state. So in summary, here's what you need to do. Have smart scheduling policies as far as when you post your schedule, how you allow shift changes, and how you allow requests off. Second, have a strict policy, 2 no call, no shows, no job. 1 is a final written warning. Explain the importance of a no call, no show in orientation. Texting and emailing do not count as calling. It's called a call off for a reason. Make sure it's in your handbook. A no call, no show is automatically a final written warning. And a second one is an automatic termination. And 2 no call, no shows in a row are job abandonment. So hopefully, in summary, that helps you guys out. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and remember, it is a beautiful day to be alive. Later.